Hello everyone. So have you heard about all of the talking that's going on right now about mental health with the Olympics happening right now? There's a lot of talk about one athlete representing the United States in particular who brought up the topic of mental health, and a lot of people are applauding her decision, and a lot of people are commenting on it, and there are a lot of opinions. But I think it's a great opportunity for us to look into the topic of mental illness or mental health and try to think about things in a biblical worldview. So let's talk about how we can follow Jesus when it comes to the topic of anxiety in particular, how we can walk with God through something difficult like anxiety, or how we can walk alongside of someone that is dealing with it and be a better support, and we can be following Jesus better in loving them and being patient and really helping them in the way that they need to be helped, and not necessarily the way we might think that they need to be helped. The reason I brought this topic up also right now is because I'm currently reading this book. I've started reading Finding Quiet by J.P. Moreland, and he talks about his own experience with anxiety, his own background, and his own experience preaching in a church, encouraging people to consider the route of medication, and being told by that church that they don't believe in those types of medications, and pretty much he wasn't invited again to that church. This brings up a really important topic that maybe I haven't spoken too much about on this channel, but we should. And I think it will help us to better understand why people are making a big deal about mental health, and why some people believe it's courageous for someone to be transparent about their own struggles. This is a very difficult topic to talk about if you are someone that is going through anxiety. There are other things also perhaps that you may be experiencing, like depression, and it is a long list of different things that can be going on in a person's mind that it's not the way that the mind should be operating, but for many reasons that is the case for someone. So whatever those things are, I hope that you'll be able to find something helpful in this video, even if I am going to be talking about anxiety in particular in this video. It's very difficult for someone to even acknowledge or reach the point in their own life where they accept that they are dealing with anxiety. I think that a lot of people may not even realize that what they are going through in their own body and their mind is not what other people are going through. They may notice that there are differences, behaviors, moods, but if someone grows up in an environment and if it's not the best environment, or if you grew up with certain genetics, if you grew up seeing parents that are dealing with these type of things and you're learning certain behaviors, all of that can be normal. And for someone to realize, wait a minute, this is not actually, normal for every single person. And that is a difficult thing to accept, to learn, because there's this sense of, how come I'm having to deal with this and other people are not? So it almost feels like it's kind of an unfair situation. So that's difficult to accept. Also, it's very difficult to understand what your own mind is doing. And I found his tips, which I heard about this book from a different YouTube video that I heard. I'll link it in the description for you to listen to it, because in that video, he brings up a little bit about what he goes more into depth in this book. And that is that people that are going through anxiety are doing a lot of self-talk that you may not be aware of you're doing. And so there's like a lot of introspection and a lot of habit changing that needs to happen. So that's a lot of work, right? So those are two things that make it difficult for someone to put that information out there for people to know about them. Another thing is there's this shame that still exists in our society. Medical, scientific discoveries, advancements are still happening, and I think that although we've learned a lot about our bodies and how to treat diseases, we are still learning about how the mind works and treatments for the mind. I remember hearing someone say that we often separate our mind with our body, and we kind of think that it's different. So if we have, let's say, a broken arm, well, we go to the doctor and we get that fixed and we take the medication that's necessary. We do what's necessary. But then when it comes to the mind, it's almost like we think we don't need those things. It just functions. And so that's what we're talking about: mental health, mental illnesses. A lot of people do not know how complicated the mind is, and all the research out there that very smart people have developed over the years and are still discovering. And so in particular, Christians are not eager to learn about that research. And so a lot of the time, we're not really helping people that are dealing with these medical conditions. And we're just kind of telling them, have faith, change the way you're thinking, have faith in God, that God's taking care of you, have faith when you're praying, do this prophetic gesture of faith, and God is going to heal your mind. And often you don't hear advice from family members, friends, church leaders, unfortunately, that tell you, how about you go talk to a professional about what you're going through? How about you make an appointment with a doctor that is an expert in medication and what you in particular need, given your symptoms. Why don't you walk with these professionals that God has given them knowledge that can be helpful to you. And I think that what ends up happening is that people feel ashamed of opening up about their anxiety because of how other people are going to make them feel and how other people are going to look down on them. It's sad because it's almost like people that do not deal with anxiety will make those people feel like, whoa, there's something really wrong with you, and it's almost like you separate, you draw this line where you think that you're normal, but other people with struggling with anxiety are not normal. And those people do pick up on your subtle ways of kind of hiding that. Or people may feel like they have no responsibility at all to help their loved one on this journey to mental health. How do I know that this is the experience of people that deal with anxiety? Well, I've heard a lot of people talking about that, and I personally have struggled with anxiety, I believe, most of my life. And I don't want to go into detail about that because, like I said, a lot has to do with genetics. A lot has to do with things that happen in your life. A lot has to do with not getting the help you needed when you needed it, and so you've learned bad habits along the way, and that has affected the way you're communicating to your own brain about, your perception of the things that bring you anxiety, fear. I think a lot has to do also with not learning to properly manage stress. A lot may have to do with relationships with people in your life, seasons in your life that you're living, physical symptoms that you may be experiencing, a lot of things. And I think it's something that other people can also throw back at you in a not so nice way. If there's, for example, a disagreement, well, how easy can it be to just, blame it on someone's anxiety, as opposed to actually just maybe even being sensitive about someone's anxiety, but not making excuses for what you are doing in a certain situation. So it's one of those things that I think people don't want to admit to themselves for personal reasons, or don't want to put out there because of the shame that will come by ignorant people that have never lived through it, people that think they know everything about it and have never read a book on it, or people that are quick to give you solutions. And then there's just people that genuinely don't like you out there, and they'll just be really mean to you. And that's an easy target, right? Just to attack someone's mental health. It's really low for someone to go there, but there are people out there that do that. So for my own personal experience with anxiety, which may look very different for other people, when I have opened up about some of the things that I struggle with, well-meaning people have come across angry that I'm a Christian and yet I'm dealing with these things, frustrated that I'm not thinking right. I remember one time also someone speaking about me, but not to me, but in front of me. And and making the point that what I was dealing with was the result of evil spirits, and that person knows, for whatever reason, maybe their own personal experience, or but it's just clearly that person has formed an interpretation about what the Bible teaches about anxiety, which it's really interesting when you press on those type of interpretations. If you were to really ask, okay, show me the proof text and show me, make the case, what you might find is more of just kind of taking Bible verses from here and there, and you just came up with your own interpretation that has very little teaching in the Bible. Like, it's not plainly taught that people that are going through anxiety or depression are needing to be delivered from evil spirits. Now, as far as evil spirits go and the things that we learn in the Bible about that people were possessed and that he told the demons to leave from those people. It's in the Bible, I believe it. But as far as depression and anxiety goes, I'm not sure you can say that those things are, the same situation. And I think that if we don't even like go down that path, we don't even have to analyze if that is correct or not, which, and how much of that is correct and how much of that is not. If we just like look at the situation of someone walking into a room with a person that may be dealing with anxiety or depression, and someone belittling the severity of the situation, to simply praying for someone to be delivered from evil spirits. I mean, intellectually, we can see that a lot is lacking in that interpretation, right? Because obviously there are other things at work. We know that there are certain chemicals that need to be functioning a certain way. And so if we were to just say that it's the result of evil spirits, well, you're not even taking into account, the revelation that God has provided through science, that there are other things at work in these people that are going through these conditions. Not even to mention what someone may be going personally. There might be conflict in that person's life, or maybe someone lost a loved one and they're going through a depression, and there are other things at work. So I feel like it's one of the worst things that someone can do, to belittle someone's condition to having evil spirits, and that pretty much you're telling the person that they're possessed, and that you're not encouraging the person to go see a specialist, someone that actually knows how to treat and how to lead someone through that, out of that situation. Let's talk about being patient with other Christians and even non-Christians. Being patient with people that don't have things figured out yet. And maybe you're on the outside and you think, well, this is what you gotta do. And maybe that person's not ready to do that. We need to be patient with those people and be kind to them. The fruit of the Spirit, which I have up there, that's what I'm looking at. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. And so there's this false expectation that if you are a good Christian, and if you're very outspoken about your Christianity, about your faith, then you shouldn't be struggling with anxiety or depression. You should just put to practice the things that you believe in. But like I already mentioned, there are a lot of different factors, a lot of different routes that may need to be explored in order for you to arrive at a better situation. And I think that that's when you, as a follower of Jesus, have to be vulnerable and honest and know that God is not going to shame you. And you do need to understand that God already knows everything that you're thinking. He's the one that understands everything you lived through. He's the one that understands you even better than you understand yourself. And so come to Him and let Him know at every moment along the way how you're feeling, how you need Him to help you to better understand things, how you need Him to be your strength when you are weak. And you need Him to help you to arrive at the right people, to reach out to the right people, the right resources, and to put things to practice that are needing to be put into practice in your own life, in your own situation. There's no one way for a Christian to deal with their anxiety, but I think that we do need to stop thinking about, for example, counseling and medication as a last resort. I think that we should be more willing to learn about those things and not wait for things to just get out of control before trying. Everyone's experience will be different, so definitely make sure that the counselor that you reach out to is someone that is familiar with anxiety and is giving you good advice. If not, maybe you want to switch to someone else, but make sure you're praying about all those things, and maybe you're able to talk to someone in your life about it that maybe struggles with anxiety also, or that doesn't come across so impatient about what you're going through. For a long time, I thought that anxiety medication was very dangerous, was something that maybe God doesn't want Christians to take for many different reasons. And it almost felt like a fear of going against what God wanted for me in particular. When I became informed about the process that people that are going to take anxiety medication go through, now I see that that's not as scary as I once thought. So there may be some doctors, like a family doctor, that may prescribe you something, but what I would recommend, and what the author of this book also recommends, J.P. Moreland, is that you should really try, even if it may be a little more expensive. Maybe you can reach out to someone to help you cover that cost. It would be awesome if churches would support, people in their congregation in that way, financially. But just throwing that idea out there. But it's really sad because I'm not sure how many churches would actually do something like that. Maybe just send the person saying, no, don't consider going down that route. But there are some doctors that are better able to help you choose the best medication for your situation. And there are some doctors that will check up on you, and you're able to call them and tell them about any concerns you may be having about certain medication. And those doctors will help you to get the right dosages or try something else. You can walk with an actual doctor through this process. J.P. Moreland talks about it as medication being food for the brain. certain brains are not getting as much of something as they may need. And he's going to go through a lot of research in his book, that he says that he felt God was leading him to learn as much about the topic of anxiety as possible, and then to share what he tried and worked for him, even after going through so many difficult medical conditions. He said he felt a lot of peace because of the things that he put to practice, which are I'm about to read in his book. So maybe I can make a follow-up video in the future after I read about that. But it does take time. And so I mostly wanted to make this video to ask people to respect when someone is vulnerable and does share that something's not right with their mind. And I think a lot of people take for granted a lot of things that you don't even realize other people don't feel that way in their body like you do. And so there are some things that are harder for them to do that you just don't understand, because it's like you've never gone through it. You just don't know. So when there's things that we just have never experienced for ourselves, I think we should be slow to form our own opinion about it, and especially share that with someone that is being vulnerable about their own experience. And they're more knowledgeable on what it's like than you if you've never gone through it. So I want to encourage people to be aware that you might not know as much about something as you may think. I also want to encourage people not to use theology against people that are dealing with anxiety. It is true. Jesus in the Bible, he told us that we are to be mindful that our Father is watching over us. And that does help us. And that is, often at the root of anxiety, just forgetting that God is watching over us and is in control. But there are also moments of weakness that God is watching over us, and we are aware of that. But that doesn't change how you are feeling inside of your body. And sometimes God may not answer that prayer. God may not remove that discomfort, because we live in this world where illnesses, diseases do exist. These things about these struggles with mental health, they are real things. And as much as you want to pray over people that have cancer, in hospitals, and how wonderful it is for God to just heal some people, I think it's a terrible thing to say that God didn't heal someone else because they didn't have enough faith. And in the same way, maybe God does miraculously heal someone of anxiety, depression in one way, but then to shame someone else that has been praying and does have faith. And it's almost like you're limiting God, because you want to say God will heal this way. But what if God is going to heal some people of anxiety by going to a counselor, and every single time that they're pouring out their heart and being vulnerable and just admitting all of the things that they need to work on? What if that's God's way of being proud of someone? Because for that person, they are following Jesus by taking the steps necessary to have a better situation. If a person is taking a medication and they're getting better, and I think God is seeing that and walking through that with that person, and that's how God is healing that person. But who are we to say, no, God can only heal you a certain way? So I want to put that out there, and I want to encourage you guys never to belittle someone when they admit their own weaknesses. And don't expect people to deal with anxiety in the way that you deal with anxiety. Because again, there are a lot of factors that we may be completely unaware of, that someone has lived through, and we may be completely unaware of how a brain actually functions and everything that goes on. It goes deeper, and maybe there is some truth about, we'll just believe that God is taking care of you, right? But we cannot ignore other things that also need to be talked about, dealt with in counseling, learned. There's time that needs to happen for the body to be in a better place than what a lot of people may not be in currently. Sometimes people legitimately want to help, but they just don't know how, and this causes a frustration toward the person, and the person is going to feel even more isolated about what they're going through. I mean, think about it. If someone's already depressed and then like someone comes across frustrated, it's going to come across like someone's being insensitive about their experience. So I think that when someone is going through anxiety, we need to give them a listening ear. We need to ask them, how's everything going? You know, are things getting better, or is there something that I can do to help? I think there are practical things that if we really wanted to help people that are dealing with anxiety, and especially as a church, right, we would be able to help those people if we ask them. And you know, I'm sure they can come up with something to ask for if they feel like it's a safe relationship there, and they're not going to be put to shame or other things. I think it's also important to pray for people that are dealing with anxiety. I think they feel that they're cared for and that they have support in prayer. I think mostly just being patient and slow to speak, because people need to go on this journey of mental health at their own pace, and they really need someone to love them through it, and someone that will not be frustrated with them, and someone that they can really feel like they can open up to about their weaknesses. So if you're quick to speak, you're quick to give your opinions, then those people will not feel comfortable opening up, and they'll just isolate, and that's not helping them. I think it's important to love and accept people, even with their anxiety, not to make them feel abnormal, but to remember that people with anxiety, they're dealing with that is their weakness, and just be mindful that they may have a strength that you are lacking. You may be weak in something that they're strong. So it's important to be aware of your own weaknesses, and you know, it's one of those things that you can really throw it at someone's face, like, oh, you're not following the Bible, because the Bible says the fruit of the Spirit is, you know, self-control and peace. But you know, there are other things that people that are not dealing with anxiety, you may be in disobedience about those things, about controlling your tongue, about, you know, gentleness, patience. And so it's important not to overlook our own weaknesses when we want to tell people with anxiety that they're failing, you know, to obey God in what they are seemingly failing. Christians, we all don't have it together. We all don't always believe God is taking care of us. We don't always exemplify what it is to perfectly live out this walk with God, this faith in Him. And so I feel like it's important to take off the pressure of having to measure up as a Christian, to just understand that people are going to fail, but that's why the Holy Spirit is here with us to help us to grow and to mature. And we should never make other people that are, in the same process as you are, to the process of growing in their character and their walk with God. We should never make them feel like they're less of a Christian than we are. It is possible to have faith in God as you take steps towards getting counseling and towards taking medication. It is possible to have faith that that is the way God is going to help you get better. So don't feel like that is going against having faith in God. No, you can actually have faith in God and go down that path as well. I think that's all I wanted to say about this topic, and I hope it's helpful to you if you are going through anxiety, or if you know someone that's going through it. I hope it will help you as well. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next video.